Hi, I'm Miles Stokes, and along with Rachel Edidin, I am the co-host of Rachel and Miles Explain the X-Men, a weekly podcast where we walk you through the ins, outs, and retcons of our favorite superhero soap opera. I'm also the co-host of Rachel and Miles Review the X-Men, which is this right here, where we talk about the X books that come out each week. So Rachel's out of town this week, so I'm going to be flying solo, but it's actually only 3 books, so it should be nice and easy. Although Rachel will be editing things, so in a way, she's with us all, in our hearts, or at least in captions that I suspect will be on this video after I give it to her. So anyway, like I said, 3 books. Let's go ahead and dive in. We'll start out with Age of Apocalypse #1, written by Fabian Nicieza, with art by Gerardo Sandoval and colors by Daniel Curiel. So yeah, Age of Apocalypse, that beacon of 90s is back, of course, as one of the battle worlds in Secret Wars, one of the alternate universes that's part of Battle World. And, it's pretty good. I was actually a little weirded out because I was expecting something very different from the original AOA, something that just took the premise in a very different direction. And what we have here is an issue that, if you sort of squint and don't pay attention to the plot details, could easily have been a part of the 90s crossover. The art is very much of a feel, the writing is very much of a feel as well, which, given that Fabian Nicieza is writing it, and he sort of defined that era along with Scott Lobdell, makes sense. But it's really enjoyable. Now, I'll go ahead and say, I was a huge Age of Apocalypse fan back in the day. I completely bought into all the 90s ridiculousness and the giant hair and the unnecessary badassitude. And all of that is very much on display here. In fact, I think Cyclops' hair is even more magnificent than it was in the original crossover. But we do get some interesting new stuff. So specifically, as a couple of our Twitter followers have notified us of, Super Doctor Astronaut Peter Corbeau is making his first appearance in the Marvel Universe, aside from a brief Mighty Avengers cameo, in quite a long time. And he's very much like 90s Age of Apocalypse style Peter Corbeau. So he's got a great big trench coat and ridiculous giant hair, and it's cool. And he's there for like 2 panels, but still, Corbeau is back, and that's important. We also, and I can't confirm this, we also seem to have a character named Burner in this issue, who I'm pretty sure is an Age of Apocalypse-ified Adam X, the X-Dream. And if that's the case, like, it's all of my 90s dreams coming true. Really, I don't have a lot of 90s dreams, but they're all in this book. So as for the book itself, it's weird because the original AOA was, a rewrite of the entire X-Men universe. For 4 months, all, I think, 9 X-Men books were replaced by this parallel dimension that Apocalypse ruled. And so that was really how it got its feel, how it got its stakes. It was the whole damn X universe. This time it's just one title. How does it get its stakes this time? By having a lot of really consequential stuff happen and a lot of characters die. And, for me, that brought me in enough to be pretty engaged. We also have Cypher as the protagonist of this, who I don't believe appeared in the original AOA, at least not in a major role. Not so sure if I buy that. There are some interesting applications of his powers, but as a point of view character, I feel like he's a little bit underused, which is a damn shame because Doug Ramsey is great. So I wouldn't call this the strongest #1 we've seen in Secret Wars, but it is definitely very solid. I'd say if you enjoyed the original Age of Apocalypse, or if you like over-the-top 90s nonsense, then absolutely go for it. If not, it's probably not in your top 10, but definitely solid. Next is Inferno #3, written by Dennis Hopeless, with art by Javier Garrón and colors by Chris Sotomayor. And so #3s are kind of hard because in the typical 4 or 5 issue miniseries, you're sort of smack in the middle, and basically it's just the gears of the plot grinding forward, getting you toward the end. And this issue is kind of like that. I mean, we have essentially Colossus and his group with the Goblin Queen getting to where Illyana would be, Illyana invading the X universe outside the barrier, and I realize if you haven't read the series, this probably makes very little sense. Suffice to say, there's a lot of horrible stuff going on, it's really cool. And not a lot of major events occurring other than part of the big conflict. That said, the big conflict we see here is truly epic. I mean, we're talking a war of demons and X-Men, many X-Men who are essentially redesigned versions of their 80s equivalents. Not like what we have today, but if the 80s sort of kept its feel, but that timeline progressed. And I love it. We even see Skids, Sally freaking Blevins, all modernified, and it's great. The book remains really expressive. We have a great creative team on this book, and the writing and the art supersell the characters' mental states, emotions, personalities, everything. I never thought of Colossus as a very facially expressive character, but Javier Garrón, good work. You have totally turned me around on that one. We, just like AOA, do see very consequential stuff happening, like I was just saying, and I think that's kind of the advantage of these kind of battle universe stories. Each battle world is distinct and separate from each other, which means these miniseries can do whatever the hell they want, and get away with it. So I like not knowing where things are going to go. I like not knowing who's going to make it out, whether the battle world in question itself is even going to survive the experience. Welcome to the X-Men battle world, etc. That's really cool. So yeah, Inferno continues to be a super solid series. Obviously, this would be a terrible place to start, but it's only number 3. Wouldn't be too hard to pick up the first couple. Very curious to see where this one goes, and I really hope at least some small element of this comes out into the post-Secret Wars X-Men. I doubt it will, but I love me some Inferno, and doubly so seeing where the story could go being followed up on years later. Finally, we have X-Men 92 Infinite Comic number 4, written by Chad Bowers and Chris Sims, with art by Scott Koblish and colors by Matt Milla. So again, to disclaim and reiterate, this is the 4th digital issue, which is going to soon be collected as part of the 2nd physical issue. If you can read the digital issues, I recommend it. There's cool little animation stuff. You get to read them earlier. I think it's worth it, and you're, I believe, saving some money doing it that way anyway. So, the book itself. The series started out as a loving and gently mocking homage to X-Men the Animated Series from the 90s. It got a little weirder as it went on, incorporating more references to the comic and just getting kind of out there and strange. And by this point, it is bizarre and hilarious and weird and glorious. I mean, what Cassandra Nova, the villain, is doing right now is trying to rehabilitate a bunch of evil mutants to make them more acceptable. And this issue, she's doing that largely with Gambit and Rogue. And so we see this weird hypothetical date they're on, this sort of psionic date, where they go through their backstories, and we get to see sort of 90s animated versions of stuff that was never on the show. We get to see also the greatest breakup note of all time between Gambit and Belladonna. Rogue bemoaning Cody, as she is contractually obligated to do whenever she mentions her powers or her origin or her sadness or anything. It's like Storm's claustrophobia. And then things just get really weird. Cassandra Nova just starts kind of breaking reality, since most of the comic takes place inside the psychic construct that she's created. I don't want to give away too many of the reveals, but trust me when I say I had this sort of look on my face while reading a lot of it. We also get this book's first version of X-Force, which is basically the dark, edgy characters who were in the animated series all teamed up, and they are such a wonderful, happy, loving mockery of their comic book selves. We get a Cable saying stab his eyes. We get Psylocke talking about the focused totality of her psychic might. It's everything you want in the 90s parts of the 90s. There is one downside to this book, which is that unlike the last 2 digital issues, Rachel and I are not characters in this issue. Not every comic is perfect. Unfortunately, the rest of the Marvel Universe makes the same mistake, but what can you do? So, yes, this series, I'd say it's probably the most unique comic in Secret Wars, and I don't say that lightly. Definitely worth checking out if you're an X fan of any sort. Whether you love the 90s or hated them, this is probably the book for you. Okay, so like I said, just 3 for this week, so that's it as far as the reviews. As far as my favorite issue, I'm actually going to have to go for Inferno number 3, which I realize may be surprising given the previous reviews. But check this out. It's really hard to do sort of a middle issue like this and have it actually be interesting and really make sure the book does not lose momentum. And Inferno number 3 is great about that. We have some very high-stakes stuff going on, which is juxtaposed very nicely with some great character moments where we learn little bits and pieces about the character's psychology, the way they bounce off of each other. We have high action that's not so energetic that it kind of obscures the small costs and character beats of what's going on. We have, I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but an excellent Nightcrawler redesign. Certainly something I've never seen anything like before. It's just a good workhorse middle issue. Inferno has been strong from the start. That continues in this issue, and I don't feel that the momentum is all dulled by the fact that we're now 3 issues in. So, great series. Please check it out. As for the best panel of the week, okay, so I said I wasn't going to spoil any of the weird stuff from X-Men 92 number 4. I'll spoil this one thing, which is, guys, come on. It's Cassandra Nova disapproving coming out of a picnic basket. Those are not words I ever thought I would say in that order, in that combination in my life. And for that right there, that's my panel of the week. Also, I've already seen at least one example that someone tweeted at us of this being memeified. Go forth and memify, my friends. Do it. Yes, so that's gonna haunt my dreams. I don't know about you. All right, that's it for this week. Thank you so much for watching. If you like these reviews, please also check out our podcast, which is Rachel and Miles Explain the X-Men. That comes out every Sunday at rachelandmiles.com, on iTunes, and on Stitcher. Also check out rachelandmiles.com for various write-ups, image posts, X-Men Evolution reviews, lots of other stuff like that. This next episode of our podcast is going to be all about half of the Mutant Massacre, the X-Men part as opposed to the X-Factor part, which benefits from having some major story consequences for all the characters involved, and also being super, super depressing. So there's that. But seriously, it's really good stuff. Check it out. So these reviews, our podcast, everything we do X-Wise, that's all made possible by our amazing Patreon supporters. Guys, thank you as always so much. If you're not a supporter and you'd like to become one so you can help us keep doing all this stuff ad-free, please check out the link either above or below this video, depending on where you're watching it. In the meantime, I will see you guys next time, or possibly sooner than that, as I pop out of your picnic basket to disapprove.